If people ask me, what is an art hive, what's the whole idea behind it? One of the things that I frequently say, just to put it in a nutshell, it's an open studio. So it's an open studio concept, which is very familiar to human beings. We've been making art in groups literally for millennia, reaching back all the way to the cave paintings in France. And if you think of groups of weavers, you could even think of things like the Impressionists or the Group of Seven. Making art outdoors in groups is just a healthy, natural human activity. So we're not doing anything particularly new here.
So the Art Hive, what I loved about it was the idea that it has free access and that people can, so materials are donated, maybe the location is in some ways supported or granted, and people can come there, and anybody, whether having a lot of money or no money, they can all join together and do art. And to have a place where people can come together in community that is open and welcome to anybody, like to all genders, to all ethnicities, to people that are from all walks of life. And where you can meet someone you maybe normally wouldn't meet. You maybe wouldn't talk to them on the street because you wouldn't know them, but suddenly you sit together, you make something either for yourself or for somebody else, and you create something, and suddenly this conversation is there. You suddenly have something to talk about, whether it's through the art, or whether it's admiring what the other does, or whether you see something that you hadn't seen that somebody does, and you get another idea for your own project. So there is this melting pot of different opportunities and possibilities that the Art Hive offers.
The way that Art Hives began, Janice Timbodos, an art therapist in Montreal, used to work in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where she first got the idea of starting an art hive. And then she brought the idea to Montreal with her when she moved there to teach at Concordia University. So art hives spread throughout Canada, and it's actually an international movement now. Stephanie and I met at Abundant Cities, which is a workshop that we took through the City of Edmonton. We learned that there was a grant available if we were to apply. So we applied, and we received enough money to buy materials and to advertise and buy signage to run 6 events in Edmonton this summer. So we chose 2 communities, Kenora, which is where Stephanie lives, and that's where we are today, and Blue Quill, which is my home community. So we held 2 art hives in June, 2 in July, and we have 2 coming up in August. So there's 2 things that we're focusing on at an art hive, or an outdoor open art studio. One thing would be literally the art that we're making, the process of making the art with the materials as we're making it. But another thing would be the connections, the human connection that we're making with other people during the event. So we may be talking to a neighbor that we've seen but never spoken to before. So it's really an opportunity to grow in community as well as to have some creative time.
I'm passionate about it because I see also, like here right now, there's so many people from so many backgrounds, and they sitting together, and the things that come out, like the inspiration they're getting from the different materials that were partly offered by people from this community, and partly we bought it through the grant money, and it's very vibrant, very alive. And there's some of my connections that I have that are sharing their skill. A friend of mine, she's sharing something about mandalas, and there's some other people that sharing their skills, they're artists, and talking to people, and we have like this very alive kind of feeling, and that's kind of what I love about it. I'm passionate about that.
What value do you think doing art has for the community in general?
I think on a personal level, my children have benefited a lot. They can express themselves really well. From a community's perspective, I think it's just to bring people together, families together, they get to do something like artistic, and it kind of brings out, even if the adults that are participating show like a child, you know. I find that with everything that's happened, even though we have all been inside a closed circuit, that we have all kind of like distanced, you know, each other from, because it was so difficult to, you know, meet with family, friends and whatnot. And yeah, I believe it's the first one after the restrictions lifted in Alberta. So I think people are now more free, that they want to come and, you know, enjoy themselves.
So if people ask me to describe an art hive, I typically like to use the metaphor of a chef or a cook preparing a meal, perhaps a smorgasbord or banquet for their friends. So they would lay the table beautifully, and of course they're laying it with food, we would lay it with art materials. So when their guests come to the table, they would help themselves to art materials. And I guess the difference here is that you're not going away to consume the meal, but you're actually taking it to your own table where you then become a co-creator. So that's the difference, I think, between the art hive and possibly the way that art is offered in schools or in maybe even in daycares, I'm not exactly sure. With an art therapy background, I think of it as an invitation to be involved, to become a co-creator. Another thing that I'd like to say when I'm explaining what an open studio is or what an art hive is, it's a learning lab for being human in groups. We forget how to interact with each other, and I think a lot of us realized this during COVID, is that we've forgotten how to interact and how to be with one another in just a simple setting that doesn't involve our normal activities like working, shopping. So here we are just focusing on being together in a really nice, light and peaceful way.